At 12 p.m. on Sunday, February the 10th, 2013, the bravest man my brother and I ever knew gave up his life to save his family. This is to honor the hero known as the Rasta Man.
My name is R Green, and my brother's name is Michael. Most of the people who thought they knew my father saw a poor black American by the name of Michael Rodney Green, born in Baltimore, Maryland, 1966.
In the decade before my father was born, the 1950s, America's government went from one, supposedly, of the people, by the people, and for the people, to a government openly controlled by the rich, white, capitalist elite. Capitalism is an economic system where one family has been instructed by their God to kill their neighbors and take possessions of their land and wealth by force. The aim of the capitalist is to force the entire world to love and want money. Everyone must become a slave to money, and anyone who does not want to work for the white corporation's money must be destroyed with extreme prejudice and hate. In 1950, the American government, under the influence of the Jewish Bank, declared war on all non-capitalistic people in the world. And the biggest obstacle to a complete capitalistic takeover of America was a generation of blacks born before the baby boom generation in 1945. Those black Americans grew up in a segregated world where blacks had their own communities and businesses. They owned schools, land, and farms, but most of all was their single-minded drive to beat the white society at everything they attempted. They dreamed of the day that the white man would get up enough courage to compete against them in sports as white teams against black teams. Black schools like Morgan Grambling and Tuskegee excelled in sports and academics as some of the top schools in the country. Entertainers like Billie Holiday, Duke Ellington, and Count Basie dominated the music industry, drawing thousands of white fans into the black community to theaters like the Royal in Baltimore and the Apollo. The background music you hear is me and my friends, dedicated to my father.
Say Queasy.
Yay! Oh yay! Queasy on the beat, y'all. Young Nicky on the mic, y'all. Okay. MIT Studio. Here we go.
Now, as I think about the world we living in, so many ways to get around these simple things. You gotta make the best of life. There's nothing wrong with looking right. I got out of bed this morning and turned my swag on, swag overload just for the mighty Lord. I'm in a meeting with the board, giving all the girls tips, making them feel it here. First thing I do when I get out of bed, I think the Lord wants to transform, making me see the light of a new age, of a new day, for a new page in history. Material world for material.
The heroics of the black soldiers in World War II under General George Patton was a major factor in the U.S. victory in Europe and cannot be ignored by the capitalists. Patton learned to respect the fighting ability of the black soldier and wanted to tell the world the truth about capitalism, but he was assassinated first. The capitalist has to control all and every means to make money legally and illegally, everywhere in the world, by any means necessary. So they immediately took dead aim at the black community in America.
Now, as I think about the world we living in, so many ways to get around these simple things. You gotta make the best of life. There's nothing wrong with looking right. I got out of bed this morning and turned my swag on, swag overload just for the mighty Lord. I'm in a meeting with the board, giving all the girls tips, making them feel it here. First thing I do when I get out of bed, I thank the Lord once or twice for making me see the light of a new age, of a new day, for a new page in history. Material world for material girl. I told my mama I'ma be a model. She said, baby girl, are you ready for that world? High fashion is a mess, and makeup in the dress make you think less. I love the fashion and the crazy mess in it. I'ma make my name in this business, I'ma finish first.
The first step was stripping the Negro of his identity through school integration. In white schools, blacks were outnumbered 4 or 5 to 1 and taught a ridiculous European history that God created the white man superior to everyone else on earth and gave them the technology of the gun, so they could dominate and enslave all the other inferior races. They were taught that only white people possess true intelligence and that black kids are dumb because they descend from the apes. But the worst thing integrated schools did was teach poor black kids that school was not for learning, but you went to school to socialize and party. Black kids stopped wanting to excel in everything as sex, drugs, and violence became the order of the day. Bullies were allowed to roam around the schoolyards, creating an atmosphere of fear and a co-educational culture dominated by the top bitch.
Around these simple things, you gotta make the best of life. There's nothing wrong with looking right. I got out of bed this morning and turned my swag on, swag overload just for the mighty Lord. I'm in a meeting with the board, giving all the girls tips, making them feel it here. First thing I do when I get out of bed, I thank the Lord once or twice for making me see the light.
And finally, to strip kids of all their creative skills, everyone is forced to take one test to see if they qualify to work for the corporation, knowing ahead of time that only the very top 5% of black kids will be successful. 10% may be lucky enough to find a job, but 85% of poor black kids in America will be the unemployed, uneducated, poor, hopeless, illiterate masses, because in 12 years schools do not teach carpentry, electronics, plumbing, tailoring, cosmetology, medical technology, or any skills necessary to survive.
Now, as I think about the world we living in, so many ways to get around these simple things. You gotta make the best of life. There's nothing wrong with looking right. I got out of bed this morning and turned my swag on, swag overload just for the mighty Lord. I'm in a meeting with the board, giving all the girls tips, making them feel it here. First thing I do when I get out of bed, I thank the Lord once or twice for making me see the light of a new age, of a new day, for a new page in history. Material world for material girl. I told my mama I'ma be a model. She said, baby girl, are you ready for that world? High fashion is a mess, and makeup in the dress make you think less.
The next step in the complete enslavement of the black community was eliminating the generation born before the baby boomers in a 10-year war called Vietnam. The U.S. government used the draft to induct every black male into the military as soon as they turned 18. And an entire generation of black fathers, brothers, and uncles were slaughtered in Vietnam so their families could be enslaved in America. The Vietnam War lasted long enough to wipe out the black generation born before the baby boomers, who had witnessed and fought against the total destruction of their communities and families by the capitalists. When the black pre-baby boom generation was wiped out in Vietnam, white casualty rates began to go up and white mothers began to howl, ending the war and the draft.
Around these simple things, you gotta make the best of life. There's nothing wrong with looking right. I got out of bed this morning and turned my swag on, swag overload just for the mighty Lord. I'm in a meeting with the board, giving all the girls tips, making them feel it here. First thing I do when I get out of bed, I thank the Lord once or twice for making me see the light.
In the meantime, the CIA needed money to pay for their illegal undercover war against all non-capitalist people around the world. And at the same time, They wanted to enslave an entire generation of black kids to addiction. So the CIA and FBI allowed the mafia to hand out sugar cubes laced with heroin to black elementary school kids. While their fathers were dying in Vietnam, the success the mafia had encouraged the CIA to create more violent drug gangs under the control of other criminal elements in the white society. They got caught under President Reagan in Nicaragua when they created the Blood and Crips gangs and armed them with guns to wage war on their own black people across the country.
Make you think less. I love the fashion and the crazy mess in it. I'ma make my name in this business, I'ma finish first. I'm a material girl living in this mixed up tiny weird world. I'ma get out the game pretty soon. Oh wait, it's a little too soon. With the willpower from God and my family, I'ma make it. Yeah, I'ma make it. And when I get there, I'ma thank everybody got me where I am. That's right.
Material girl, material girl, material girl, hey. Material girl, material girl, material girl, hey.
Rose, diamonds, you can get them all, but if they really worth all the troubles in the mall.
In the very beginning, to hide their evil purpose from the rest of the world, the capitalist elite dressed up a sorry-ass pimping preacher by the name of Martin Luther King in expensive suits, diamonds, and a chauffeur-driven limousine, and paraded him before the world as a poor dumb monkey, begging the white slave masters to please let him be a human being like them, since their loving white God made him too. With the media maintaining the focus on King, a whole generation of black kids were turned into heroin and cocaine addicts, while their fathers were killed in Vietnam and their businesses, farms, lands, and families were destroyed or taken over. Once King had accomplished his purpose of helping the capitalists to destroy the black community and family, he was assassinated to keep him from seeing the evil he had inflicted on his own people, and to allow the white media to turn him into a martyr as a famous black preacher begging to be white for young black kids to look up to. The real truth is that black soldiers rioting in the military during Vietnam over their second-class status forced the government to give in to certain black demands, but the media gave all the credit to King. My grandfather was in one riot in Germany in 1964, in which 8 black soldiers were killed. But President Johnson told the white officers in Europe that if word of what happened ever reached the American people, he would court-martial every one of them, because he did not want the world to know that the black soldiers were being sent to Vietnam to die. The next phase in the annihilation of black America was the no-knock law. The no-knock law allowed police to kick in the door of all black leaders and activists who wanted to maintain their own identity, businesses, and communities, and kill them without warning before they could react. My grandfather tells me of the days when he had bars across his doors with a shotgun behind each one and pistols all around the house. As a black militant or socialist from that era, he did not expect to live past 35. The government finally killed the wrong innocent man, and the no-knock law was exposed and declared unconstitutional. The law was replaced with SWAT teams or special weapons assassination teams, because the police feared a shootout with black vets from Vietnam trained to kill.
Say Queasy.
Lurking in the background was welfare, a program paying 12 and 13-year-old girls to have a baby to get government money. Nothing did more to bust up the black family than welfare, where a girl would only receive government payments if no father was around. 3 or 4 young girls between 12 and 15 living in the same neighborhood would end up pregnant by one jobless 18-year-old punk who lived off all of their welfare payments. The day of the so-called pimping nigga was born, and black girls became bitches and hoes.
Say Queasy.